The Silk Road was not a road, it was a pricing system, stretched across sand, stone, border posts, oasis towns, and men who knew the real profit was not in silk, but in owning the risk between buyer and seller. I'm Simon, and this is the Silk Road Syndicate model, the quiet trade machine that helped price the ancient world, not through one empire, not through one king, through merchant houses, guards, lenders, guides, caravan chiefs, translators, and local elites who turned broken land into lanes of capital. Start with the hard part. A bolt of silk leaving China did not glide west into rich courts. It passed through hands, heat, cold, coin types, tongues, bandits, tax gates, wells, passes, and bad politics. Each mile added risk. Each risk needed a price. Whoever knew that risk best could take the margin. That is where the syndicates came in. They were not firms with modern boards, but they used the same hard logic. Merchant groups matched credit, transport, guards, storage, and news across vast space. They did not need to own the route. They only had to dominate links other men could not replace. In long trade, the real asset is often not the goods. It is the safe corridor. Persia, Central Asia, and Western China sat across the middle of the machine. Samarkand, Bukhara, Kashgar, Merv, and Dunhuang were not just fine names on a map. They were pricing nodes. Cargo paused there, news met there. Coins were weighed there, camels were changed there, guards were hired there, credit was settled there. The Oasis was a balance sheet. A trader from the east brought silk, paper, lacquer, or fine clay. A trader from the west brought silver, glass, wool, horses, or gems. Neither side knew the full end market. The middlemen did. That gap in knowledge was power. The western buyer did not know desert risk. The eastern maker did not know hunger in a far court. The syndicate sat between want and doubt and priced both. This is how controlled lanes form. First, master movement. Then master trust. Then master news. After that, the product is almost secondary. The route itself becomes the asset. Security was the first layer of leverage. A caravan crossing open ground carried dense value. Silk was light, small, and costly. Spices and gems could move in tiny loads with huge margin. That made them perfect targets. Protection was not a nice extra. It was part of the price. Caravan chiefs, pooled men, beasts, guards, and guides because one exposed trader was weak, but a convoy could absorb danger. The cost of armed guards, water rights, local tolls, and safe passage was built into the final sale. This was risk pricing before insurance. The syndicate turned danger into margin. Then came route intelligence. A trader had to know which wells had water, which ruler had raised tolls, which clan held a pass, which war had shut a road, and where demand had jumped. Bad news could destroy capital. Good news could double it. A man with fresh facts could move cargo before prices shifted. He could hold stock while others rushed to sell. He could delay a caravan when the road was unsafe. He could send goods through a rival city and sell scarcity as if he had made it himself. That is market power. The Silk Road was a credit system. Moving metal across long space was slow and risky. Trusted merchants used promises, kinship, deposits, and name value to avoid carrying full wealth in coin. A trader in one city could receive goods on the strength of a house far away. The promise relied on trust, but trust was not soft. It was backed by rank, family, future access, and the threat of being shut out. With no fast courts across borders, reputation was collateral. That collateral had real value. A merchant house trusted in 5 cities could move faster than rivals paying in metal at every stop. It had liquidity without dragging heavy silver through each dangerous mile. That speed became advantage. Advantage became volume. Volume became influence, and influence became pricing power. The states around the route understood this. Great courts and small rulers all tried to tax, guard, or redirect the flow, but no ruler could manage every deal from East Asia to the Mediterranean. They needed middlemen. The merchants needed rulers. Each side held leverage over the other. That made a strategic alliance between power and trade. A ruler who protected a road gained customs, gifts, and prestige. A merchant who accepted the ruler's terms gained safer movement and legal cover. But the merchant also gained something deeper. He could tell buyers his route was safer, better stocked, and more reliable than the next path. Safety became a premium feature. This is where the Silk Road stops looking like loose trade and starts looking like a pricing engine. The syndicates did not just move goods. They shaped the final price by controlling time, risk, and access. A closed pass could raise prices in a far market. A war rumor could alter terms before a sword was drawn. A caravan chief with rare guides or water rights could charge more. A merchant house with partners in several Oasis towns could exploit ignorance between regions. The road did not set one price. It created layers of price. There was the maker's price, the transport price, the guard price, the tax price, the storage price, the coin price, the delay price, the trust price. By the time silk reached a rich buyer, the cloth carried not only labor and beauty, but the cost of surviving a continent. That is why luxury goods suited the system. High value and low bulk can absorb risk. Grain cannot easily pay for 1,000 miles of danger. Silk can, gems can, spices can, fine dyes can. The syndicates chose goods that could carry high margin through weak roads. That is capital allocation under extreme distance, but high margin draws force. Bandits wanted cargo. Officials wanted tolls. Rival traders wanted access. Empires wanted control. Local chiefs wanted tribute. The syndicates survived because they were not only traders. They were brokers of force. They paid when payment cost less than conflict. They rerouted when a toll grew too high. They married into local families. They learned languages. They funded shrines, contracts, and civic trust. They became hard to remove because people needed them. A ruler could threaten them, but remove them, and trade weakened. Revenue fell. Foreign goods vanished. Diplomatic gifts slowed. The court lost access to luxury, news, and cash flow. That is the shield of being indispensable. The strongest syndicate is not always the one with the largest army. It is the one that makes every other powerful player poorer when it disappears. Yet the Silk Road machine was never safe from change. It relied on stable politics, water, trust, and demand for luxury. When war cut roads, when sea routes grew stronger, when policy shifted, or when unrest hit key towns, the corridors lost speed. Capital moved towards safer channels. That is the flaw in corridor control. You can dominate a route only while that route remains vital. If a rival path becomes cheaper, safer, or favored by rulers, the old lane loses pricing power. The gatekeeper becomes a landlord on a road fewer people need. Still, for centuries, these networks performed one of the great commercial acts of pre-camera history. They turned land into leverage. They turned distance into margin. They turned danger into a price service. They turned trust into liquidity. and they turned scattered cities into a chain of financial pressure points across the ancient world. The strategic post-mortem is clear. The Silk Road was not just a trade route, it was a shared monopoly over movement, news, and risk. No single family owned all of it, no single empire controlled each mile. But the syndicates who mastered the middle could price the ignorance of both ends. That is where power sat, not in the silk itself, not in the camels or the coins. It sat in knowing which road was open, which ruler could be paid, which buyer was desperate, which seller lacked news, and which risk could be turned into a fee. The ancient world thought it was buying luxury. In reality, it was paying for the financial engineering of distance. Thank you for watching. If you value sharp historical breakdowns of monopoly, leverage, capital, and power, like this video and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. So here is the question. Were the Silk Road syndicates simply merchants? Or were they the invisible pricing cartel that taught the ancient world how distance becomes profit?